Welcome to One Cool Story, Tales from the University of Oregon's School of Journalism and Communication. I'm your host, Julia Bobach. In this episode, journalism senior Sophie Fowler chats with Jackie Gutierrez, an alum of the SOJC's Journalism Master's Program and founder and manager of the soccer website Women Kick Balls. Yeah, they do. Jackie revealed how she crowdfunded a dream trip to the 2023 Women's World Cup in New Zealand, how soccer led her to become a coffee entrepreneur, and how she came up with the name for her website. Also, you'll hear her one piece of advice for women in male-dominated fields.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's just start off. How did you first get into sports journalism and why women's soccer?
Yeah, so I actually grew up playing soccer for 10 years. So it was something that my entire family was involved in. And I'm pretty competitive too. So it was just nonstop. Every weekend you have tournaments and I just loved the game. And then I was always pretty creative as a kid. I would write stories or just, draw, whatever it was. So even though I wasn't really good academically in school, I just knew that I wanted to be a writer one day. And so when I was 17 years old, I said I wanted to be a sports journalist. And that wasn't even an option or even cool back then because no one really knew what that meant. And women's soccer, at least at the club level, just started growing. And so, yeah, that was a thing I was pretty set on. I just didn't know what that meant or how to even go about it. But my Uncle Joe was someone that really encouraged me to live out my dream and just, gave me the courage to just go for it. And so with his encouragement and support, I just started a few websites and then eventually created Women Kick Balls later on in college. And from there, it's just been so cool to see the growth of it. But yeah, it's definitely been a process for sure.
Jackie, you got your undergrad at Vanguard University in California, and then you got your master's here at the University of Oregon in 2020. What made you decide to get your master's degree, and why did you choose the SOJC?
So back in college, when I was thinking about potentially going to grad school, it was a big idea and kind of unsure if it would even happen. But being that I cover the National Women's Soccer League or the NWSL, we didn't have teams in California until 2022. So up until that point, the closest teams to me were actually the Portland Thorns here in Oregon. And so I thought if I do go to grad school, I want to go in a city where there is an NWSL team. And so I just pulled up 3 different grad programs and realized some of them are super expensive and just in areas that were really cold or whatever. And so I was on email lists for these 3 programs and didn't really think about it and just honestly would kind of see them and then delete them. And then I saw this email from just University of Oregon, and it was during a time of COVID. So I graduated of May of 2020 with my undergrad in communication and journalism. And I thought, I don't really know what's happening next, but maybe I should just check out the Zoom information session. As I was on that call, I just saw all the professors and the staff, and they were so helpful. And I thought grad school would be super intimidating and I don't know, just like mean, I guess, in a sense. And so I just thought, wow, these professors are really kind and they have so much information and just knowledge. And so I literally applied to the University of Oregon a week before the deadline because I was not planning on it. And to my surprise, got accepted. And so then in June of 2020, that's when I started grad school and I had a full-time job in the marketing industry. I was a full-time grad student and was also managing Women Kick Balls full-time. So I was doing a lot of things at once, but just figured a way to make it work. And so, yeah, it was definitely something that wasn't super planned initially, but I'm so grateful for it. And even though it was online, I gained so much information. It really shaped me into the person, the professional that I am today. So I love talking about the SOJC and just what it's about. So I always tell people about it. It really did make a difference just in the work that I do today.
Do you have any thoughts on why someone who's interested in grad school should join the Journalism Master's Program?
Yeah, I think when it comes to this program, for me specifically, I didn't actually really learn about just this type of level of journalism until I was here. So in high school, you can only kind of do so much as a writer or just and figuring out that career path. And then with my undergrad, I was actually the first student to graduate with a journalism minor at that university, but it's so different when you have professors who just enjoy writing or maybe they're just mom bloggers or whatever versus coming to a program like the SOJC here where you have professors who are just top-notch in their field and have a wide variety of experiences, whether it's investigative reporters or photojournalists and multimedia journalists, audio production. And so when I think about the professors here, I just look at their skill sets and not only are they just so skilled and talented in what they do, but they're so approachable as professors, and there's never a dumb question, or they never give you assignments that feel like busy work. Everything has a purpose to it. And so even now for myself, I'm an adjunct professor when it comes to graphic design and journalism, and I think about the things that I learned here as a student and how can I incorporate that into the students and the classes that I have. So it's something where it's not just something that kind of, okay, once you graduate, it's done, but it's, at least for me, I have the cool opportunity now to continue that cycle of growth with the students that I teach. And so I just look at it and see how it, in my life, it covers so many angles, and just there's so many ways that you can learn. And the biggest thing that I took away from this program is that it's important to be a lifelong learner, because once you graduate school, it's not that you just, stop learning. There's so many other things about life to keep growing in. And so that was something that I took away from it. But I think this program is a great way to practice those skills. And it's just an environment that's very welcoming to do that. So it's not intimidating. Professors aren't mean as sometimes students might think. And so I think for me, it was just a very it just met my needs in a way that I didn't actually even think it could, but it met the needs and also gave me so much more too.
That's awesome. So let's talk about your post-grad life. What did your career path look like?
Yeah, so after I graduated from here, it was just interesting because I was working at a PR firm at the time, and I was the first ever digital marketing hire there. So my job was to create videos and graphics and just all the types of different media projects for clients, specifically in the government industry. So very different type of, just clientele. But when it came to that, my job was just really challenging because I would have all of these ideas and they would take weeks to get approved by clients and my bosses. So I would kind of just sit around and not do much. And I thought, wow, I just learned so many cool skills and just felt like I was on cloud nine after graduating from the SOJC. But then here I am, and this job is just like sucking the life out of me. And so obviously that's very different from sports, but I kind of accidentally became a full-time freelancer. So I thought, I cannot do any more of this sitting around and just wasting my potential, because there's so many things I want to do in life and just so much value I want to add in the sports industry, but I'm not going to be able to do that here. And so I quit my job and then didn't really have a full-on plan as to what to do next, which is usually the summer of my life. I don't always have a plan, but somehow it works. And so then I just started becoming a freelancer, and in 2022, it was a unique year because in the NWSL, we now got 2 teams in Southern California, and that never happened before. So now I started going to games in person, whereas before I was just covering them online, but those in-person connections made all the difference. And so I would go to games, and you meet players, and you meet fans, and just other people in the industry. And as you start showing up, people notice too. I didn't realize that. I just thought, cool, I'm so excited to go to games. And so from that, I just started meeting clients as well and marketing myself as an independent sports journalist who obviously is in the media, but then I also produce media services for clients too in the soccer industry. So I wanted to keep my focus just to soccer, whereas with the PR firm or just even in life, people will ask you to take photos for someone's baby shower or whatever. And my thing is like, this is great, but I love soccer, and that's where I found the most joy. So I just found a way to take my media skills and apply it to an industry that I knew I wanted to be in. And so there's a lot of challenges with that too, but it was just something where, again, I wasn't planning on it, but I think this program gave me the confidence knowing that I had the proper skill set and that the proper training to be able to do that. So even today, I'm usually the youngest Hispanic female in the room, and that's sometimes weird. And when I first started out, I was so intimidated, but now I just kind of own that and think about my experience in the SOJC. And it's crazy that a lot of my colleagues too actually didn't go to school for journalism. So I have this knowledge and insight, but in a way, I also get to learn from my colleagues too. So there's kind of a mix there just in terms of how things have played out since then.
What's your favorite part about working and writing in women's soccer?
Yeah, I think when it comes to soccer, I look at just sometimes, for example, on game days where maybe you see a player and they're getting their first appearance with the team, or maybe they score their first goal and there's this big moment. And so I love just seeing the fans and their excitement for the game. It's something that I feed off of as well. And then kind of another personal, thing that's always fun is I'll be at games and I'm usually on the sidelines as a photographer with my media credentials. And so it's always funny when you're walking by just the fans in the area too, and I hear like, hey, women kick balls, and I look and I'm like, oh yeah. It's funny because sometimes people don't know my first name as Jackie, and sometimes others do, but I just love being able to have those moments of either seeing people that I know and recognize. And so, for example, another kind of story off that is when I covered the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, it was my first time ever covering that major type of tournament. And I was in New Zealand and Australia by myself for 37 days. And in my first game, I remember walking out to the stadium, and there's 50, plus thousand people in these stands, so it's a lot. And as I was walking with my backpack, I felt like it was the first day of school or something, because you're in this new environment. And as I'm walking out, I have this little vlog camera, and I'm just kind of doing my thing, and I hear someone yelling my name, and I'm thinking, I don't know anyone here, so this is kind of weird. And I look, and it's one of my email subscribers, so shout out to Sarah, because she's great. And I look, and she's actually not just waving to me, but then she's like pointing to her shirt. And I used to sell these shirts that say Woman Kickballs Fam on it, and so she's wearing that. And she's like, let's take a selfie together. And so just thinking of moments like that where I could be across the country, and just seeing how soccer brings people together is such a sweet moment. And so that's what I try to look for in my work is how to bring people together.
That's awesome. How long have you been reporting for women's soccer now?
Gosh, so it's been 10 years. I'm 27, but it wasn't until the past 2 or 3 years where I really became a full-time freelancer and started making a business and revenue out of it. So I've been around for quite a bit, but like I said, in 2022, that was such a game changer because now people were seeing me in person more. And obviously when you're 17, you can only do so much in terms of traveling and going places too. So just as an adult in my career, just seeing the growth from that has been really cool. But yeah, it's been a good 10 years, so there's lots of ups and downs with it, but women's soccer is growing so drastically too, and so I think it's really cool to see where it's grown from watching games on YouTube to seeing, major media deals and watching games on ESPN and being at them as well. So it's definitely just a major shift that's only going upwards.
Has your reporting taken you anywhere especially interesting?
Yeah, so back in 2023, it was a unique year because it was a World Cup, and so when I was thinking about the World Cup, I obviously wanted to go and just wasn't really sure how to do it because I'd never been to one before. And for me personally, the first soccer game I ever watched was the 2011 FIFA Women's World Cup final with my dad. So I got hooked on soccer, at least watching it, because of a World Cup final. And then when the opportunity came up to go to the World Cup, I thought I need to find a way to get there. And so it's this full circle moment. But I got to go to Australia and New Zealand, and that was just such an incredible experience. But from that, what was kind of crazy is how I got there. So a lot of independent creators were creating GoFundMes and asking, people for money and whatever. And not that it's a bad thing, but I really wanted to find a way to do something different and a way that would really invite people into my process and kind of make them feel like they were connected to my journey of going to the World Cup. So I just created this random campaign, and it had different tiers like Patreon, where based on the tiers, they can get exclusive benefits to maybe for example, a close friend's on my Instagram story, and they could see videos that I post there. Or I was working on a soccer magazine about the World Cup, so they can get a signed copy. They could get their name in the magazine. So with these different tier benefits, I initially looked at how much it would cost to go to the World Cup for that long. And I had my costs estimated about $12,000, which was a decent amount, and also gave me a little bit of wiggle room just in case. And so I put this campaign up for $12,000, and it was insane how it got more than fulfilled. And at first I was just putting everything on my business credit card, and I was like, I hope this works out and I can pay it off. And so then the day I arrived to New Zealand, I saw that number reach beyond that goal. And I just remember thinking whoa, this is crazy. And so it was just so cool to see that happen. And I was just so grateful for the experience that people wanted to come alongside me and be with me in that. And so it's a trip that obviously it's so special because it was my first World Cup. As a side note, the U.S. didn't do great in their performance, but overall, it was such an incredible experience, and I feel like I was a study abroad student, and so it was something that means a lot to me, and I talk about it so much, but that trip brought so much joy, and just a reminder as to what I get to do in that opportunity. And so, that's a trip that I often reflect on, of just kind of coming back to my why of covering the game.
Now, you've mentioned Women Kickballs a few times now, which is the organization that you're the founder of. For those who don't know, Women Kickballs is an independent media company that is working to capture women's soccer in an authentic voice. Could you give us a little bit more detail about Women Kickballs and your inspiration for starting the company?
Yeah, so back in 2018, it was December, I remember, because my Uncle Joe, he actually came over to my house and he put his credit card on the table and he was like, Jackie, we need to get you a website. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And so the name I initially wanted cost over $2,000. And so I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And he was even talking me through it. He goes, is this name really worth it for $2,000? And I was like, you're right, it's not. So I then had to just kind of come up with something. And I remember just this player that I cover, her name's Cindy LaRue, and she actually plays for a team that I cover now in Angel City. It's called Angel City FC in LA. And so in Sydney's bio, she's always had this where she says, I kick balls. And I just always thought that was so funny. And so then I kind of went off that and I would tell people, I write about women who kick balls. And so that was the first idea that came to mind for a name. But I thought, women who kick balls, that sounds too long. Like, I don't know. And so I started kind of thinking through it. And sure enough, I ended up being at the dinner table with my dad, my brother, and my Uncle Joe. So literally like the three most important men in my life. And I just said, women kick balls. And they kind of laughed at first. And when I explained it, they were like, whoa, that's good. And so I thought, if I can get their approval as men, then I'm good to go. So I just kind of went with it. The domain name cost 99 cents at the time. So it was way better than $2,000, and I just went for it. And then starting in January of 2019 is when I actually started publishing on that site. And so I didn't really know what to expect with Women Kick Balls. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a platform where I started writing articles and then maybe it led to another job or whatever it would be. But yeah, with Women Kick Balls, I just, like I said, didn't know the impact. And so my biggest thing when it came to having a website was that I wanted to provide articles that were not only quality news, but that were free to fans at every level. So I know in terms of the journalism business model, a lot of times people follow paid subscriptions, and I hate getting those pop-ups on your screen of trying to subscribe. So the unique thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to think about access and making sure everyone can access news to learn about the game. Because if you want the women's game to grow, we need to make sure that there's doors open for people to feed into that. So my site allows people from hardcore fanatics to people who have no idea what the NWSL even means to learn about that. And so it grew from that. And then that's when I eventually added on the media services in terms of providing that to clients. And that's really how I make money there. But yeah, Women Kick Balls is growing, and it's even growing in the coffee industry. I started a coffee company from it, and so that's a whole different trajectory of journalism, but something that I'm excited to dive more into as well.
How did you decide that coffee should get involved?
Yeah, so I love coffee, and I think about some examples such as a sports bra in Portland and Rough and Tumble in Seattle, and these sports bar environments that are showcasing women's sports on their screens. And I thought about some of the numbers that they've been generating, and I thought how exciting that is for just women's sports as a whole. And I'm thinking about that type of environment, and I'm like, I don't really drink, but I love coffee. So how can I actually create an environment for people that's similar, but in an environment where maybe it's a coffee shop and then it's streaming soccer games? And how can I create that community outside of a game day experience? So back in April of 2023, I had this super random idea, and I was like, I want to create a soccer coffee shop. I have no idea how to do that because I don't even know how to make specialty coffee or latte art. So I sat on this idea for a year, and I started researching coffee classes, which I had no idea is an actual thing. And I started taking coffee classes, learning about the farming process and roasting and brewing and all these things. And then, of course, latte art and just how to do it. I bought a home espresso machine and started practicing. And so I thought, if I want to have a soccer coffee shop, that's a great idea, but you also need to be realistic about how you're going to get there. So what does that path look like? So I built it out into 3 phases. Phase 1 is I sell coffee beans online, and I work with a coffee distributor in Stockton, and they roast and ship my beans directly to my customers. So I just have to focus on the marketing. And one of the cool things about the coffee that I sell is that on the back of each bag, it has a crossword puzzle filled with NWSL trivia facts. And I grew up just like doing the puzzles on back of cereal boxes. So I thought that'd be kind of cool for soccer fans to enjoy that. And then the second phase is having a coffee cart, and specifically going to youth soccer games, because again, I think about when I was younger and what were the things that I wanted to see when it came to women's soccer. And one of them I think about is how my parents, God bless them, is that they would wake up really early and spend all day at the soccer fields with me, and they often didn't have to like a place to get coffee on site. They had to go to Starbucks during a break or whatever. So I want to have a coffee cart that is specifically at youth soccer games to help build that bridge between families and showing them how great and how fun the women's game can be. And then the third phase is obviously eventually having a soccer coffee shop. Don't know when that will happen, but I think phase 2 is really key into generating revenue to then have a shop. So I'm currently on phase 2. My coffee cart is opening next month, so I'm very excited. And yeah, I put in a good amount of time and research and money into developing it. And so it's something where I have already gotten a lot of great feedback. And actually pretty soon I'll be hosting this pop-up with my family and friends to just kind of test the waters with my menu and everything. So a totally different route to journalism, but it's still a way to funnel my stories and my creativity through something as simple and tangible as coffee. So yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Super cool. Really important question here. what's your go-to coffee order?
Oh yeah, I just finished having coffee, so I love this question. I have a hot order and an iced drink, so I'll give you both. My go-to coffee order for a hot drink is an oat milk cappuccino, and then for an iced drink, it's pretty similar. It's just a iced vanilla latte with oat milk as well. So I'm all about the oat milk, and yeah. But I'm also open to trying like other drinks or maybe seasonal ones too.
What is your wow, I made it moment in sports journalism?
Yeah, so to give you a quick little context for the story here, but when I was in high school, my academic counselor, I had this meeting with her and my parents, and she was asking about my career and what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to be a sports journalist for women's soccer. And she totally shot it down. It was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, newspapers are a dying business, and I don't think you're going to make it as a journalist. And I remember thinking, like, okay, that's weird because there's more ways to do journalism, but, that wasn't her background. So that actually like fueled the fire in me to kind of prove her wrong. And then when it came to actually 2021, I was a grad student here at the SOJC, and being that I was in Southern California, I just started thinking of ideas of how can I market myself, because I was learning so much about these different skills as a journalist. And so then I thought, you know what, I'm going to pitch myself to my local newspaper, not as a writer, but pitch my story to them and see if they want to write about me, because sports, we're here and there with COVID. And so I reached out to their local sports writer and just told them who I was and introduced myself and kind of told them a little bit about what I do. And I had this interview with him, and so my story got actually published in not just one, but in 9 newspapers across Southern California. And I just remember thinking, like, newspapers aren't a dying business, because here they are, and then here's my story being published in them. And so it was just so funny, because I was telling my parents about this, and they were so excited. And I mean, I just went to the local 7-Eleven gas station to get the morning newspaper, which I've never done before. And I was in my pajamas, and I'm over here just like, where's this newspaper? And I bought like 5 or 6 copies, I don't even know how many, and I brought it home to my dad, and I said, yeah, look at the sports section and see what you find. And he's looking at it, and he's like, and it was just so funny, I actually have a video of it, but he's wearing his Oregon crew neck sweater, and he's looking, and at first he makes a joke, he's like, well, why aren't you on the front page? And I was like, that's not how it works. And then he opens the sports section, he's like, whoa, this is so cool. And just like that moment where I thought, yeah, putting yourself out there is a risk, and sometimes you have to do it and you don't know what's going to happen. That sports writer totally could have ignored my email, but just seeing that my work resonated with a lot of people was something that was such a sweet impact. And from that, actually, it was kind of random, but I had this inquiry from someone, and he reached out to me, and he was a professor of journalism at a college in Southern California. And he said, hey, Jackie, can you come teach on my Zoom class? And I was like, okay, great. Sure enough, his son came here to the SOJC as well. And one of my classmates and him worked together. So super small world, but just so cool to see the way that, again, putting yourself out there, like you just never know what can come from it. And so that was a moment where I thought, whoa, here I was at one point in my life being told that I shouldn't do something because of someone's very narrow viewpoint of what career, like a journalism career, could look like. And then I proved them wrong without even realizing it. And so I just think about that grit and that just determination that I had, and just very grateful that my story does resonate with people and that I can actually be an example for others, because I totally wish I had an example to look up to. And so, yeah, it's just an honor to be able to do what I get to do, but it's not easy either. So just making sure that I'm always kind of talking about both the highs and lows of what it looks like to chase your dreams, because like I said, I just didn't have that example, but now I kind of see it in a different light too.
You've done really well for yourself in an industry that's predominantly male dominated. Do you have any advice for other women who want to get into sports journalism, and what can they do to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, in a very male dominated industry, it can be tough sometimes when you're totally outlier in a press conference or whatever it may be. But something that I've learned to do when it comes to being in those professional settings is just reaching out to people, and especially introducing myself to people I don't know. And when I first started out, I was not a super social butterfly like I am now. I was so intimidated and just kind of introverted. And so it was really hard for me to do that. But I think about times where I'm in a press box or even on the field, and you start seeing, the same kind of faces. And so being that you're already going to be around these people, like, just go up to someone and introduce themselves. And I can't tell you how many times I've met people, especially I really think about some of the guys in the industry that I know who are just super kind and nice and they're in your corner. I think about some of those guys who are just a real deal and they're advocating for me, or maybe they're telling someone about my services or whatever it may be, or even just having a conversation and catching up about life or what you're doing. It's an opportunity where you can build professional friendships with people, and not always to do that to like get something out of it and sell yourself on that, but just do it and build a friendship and have a conversation with them. And before you know it, like those people will then want to work with you because of those genuine connections. And so I think about people like that, and especially for women, it's super tough, but you just got to push through. Sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes it's going to be lonely, but I just think about the ways where in my work, I try to do what I wish I would have had when I was growing up. I try to be the type of person that I wish I saw in those types of press conferences. I didn't really have a lot of people going out of their way to mentor me or to just even say hi to me, especially being the youngest person in the room. So I think, how can I just be that lending hand to someone who maybe this is their first game and they're super intimidated, right? And maybe just me going up to them and saying hi and just, asking them about their experience or whatever might make the difference. And so a side story to that actually kind of happened recently at a game that I was at, and there was this young girl, her name's Sophia, and it was so funny. She came up to me and said hi, and we were talking, and she was super sweet. And towards the end of the conversation, when she got comfortable, she said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't sure if that was you or not, so I had to go on your Instagram really quick and just double check." And I was like, "Yeah, I've been there. Trust me, you're totally good. I do it all the time." And then I saw her the next day, actually, like at the game, and we happened to be standing alongside each other on the sidelines, and I could just see her hunger in terms of wanting to grow in the industry. And so she started asking me questions, and that was the perfect time for me to just be able to pour into her, because one, I don't have to like set up an additional time to then talk to her, but two, I see that Sophia is like showing up, she's doing the work, like we're in the same setting. And so as I'm shooting photos and she's doing social media content, we're just having this conversation, and I just think about, man, I wish I had someone like that when I was starting out. And so Sophia is really great. Like, she even supports like my Patreon channel and is someone that like has known me online and then got to meet me in person. And so I just think about people like that who are hungry for it, and you have to have that drive because no one else is going to do the work for you. It's up to you to do it. And so just find ways to learn and to grow, and really find ways to be a creative problem solver. That's what it comes down to a lot, because you're not always going to have everything lined up for you. You're not going to have a rule book. Sometimes you're going to have to create that rule book or things like that. Sometimes you have a plan, it doesn't go that way. Maybe still you have to adjust a little bit. So just be flexible in that, but always have this drive to keep growing and to keep learning, and just to be adjusting when it's needed, because as a journalist, things are always changing. And so your response to that can really like make the difference too.
Now, we've talked about soccer for quite a while now. Do you have a favorite team to root for?
I don't know. It's tough because as a journalist, like I try to be unbiased with everything. And then two, honestly, I don't have one set team, but because I'm all about like the stats and who's doing good, or just maybe sometimes a key player. But being from Southern California, I go to a lot of San Diego Wave games, and they started out really great. Right now, they're in a different season as well. And then just this past season, yeah, it was really tough. Some of the teams that I thought would do well didn't. And so that's kind of the fun thing about the NWSL. It's so unpredictable. And I actually started out covering just the U.S. because, like I said, NWSL teams really weren't around as much at first. And so, with the U.S. as well, there's so many younger players and just incredible talent that's coming through there. But I don't know, it's tough to pinpoint one particular team just because I'm like covering all of them and I'm looking at them from different angles. So I don't have a direct answer, but if I do think of something, I'll let you know.
So we're getting to the end of our interview, but before we go, we always ask guests to share one cool story with our audience from their career or their time at the SOJC. Do you have one more story you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, it's different because my experience was all online because of COVID and just being on Zoom. So I don't know, I don't have a normal experience in the sense of like I didn't come to campus when school was in session literally until this week, which is like 5 years later. So yeah, my experience is totally different, but I think about actually one of my professors, Damian Radcliffe, who taught me a lot when it came to not just reporting styles and techniques, but also audio production. And Damian has always just been a professor that I could just tell really cares and invests in his students. And so I remember one time we had this audio project, and yeah, I actually avoided audio and video before I came to grad school because I thought it was so intimidating, and now I love it. But with Damien, he made audio just very approachable, and it wasn't something where he expected you to be super great, but he told you how to be great, and he gave you the skill sets to do so. And so with Damien's class, I remember we did this little audio project of telling a story just through a vocal narrative and then maybe adding in additional sounds or audio tracks. And so he actually took the time to reach out to students and set up a one-on-one Zoom call to go over the class and just give them feedback, and just provided a way for students to ask questions too. And as someone who grew up being super afraid to ask questions, I really appreciated that, because on Zoom it can be intimidating to learn. But having that one-on-one time just makes it a little less, just intense or intimidating. And so I was talking to Damien on Zoom, and I was on my laptop, and I didn't even realize this setting was on my computer. But I think it's funny because as we're talking online, I get a FaceTime call and it's coming off of my laptop. And so the sound is super loud. And I'm like, I don't have no idea what's going on. I'm trying to like exit out of the tab, and I'm thinking like, hopefully he didn't, like, this isn't coming up on his end. And so I'm able to exit out of the tab, and then I just look at him and I said, sorry, did you hear that call come through? And he goes, yeah, it's okay. And I just thought, I really appreciate you right now, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's so not professional or whatever. But I just think of moments like that where, yeah, sometimes things don't go your way, but just like making the most out of it. And so it was funny, because then like later on, I'll ask my brother, I was like, how do you turn the setting off on my computer? Because this can never happen again, since like everything was online. And so, yeah, hasn't happened since. But just like a random funny story, since, like I said, my experience was pretty different.
Thank you so much for sharing that story, and thank you so much for being with us today, Jackie.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, and as always, go Ducks.
Well, you heard it from Jackie. SOJC professors are not mean. They're actually quite nice and pretty amazing, if we may say so ourselves. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of One Cool Story, Tales from the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communication. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to hear more, find us wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. To stay up to date on what's happening at the SOJC, follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Blue Sky at UOSOJC. From Allen Hall, I'm Julia Bobach. See you next time.